When we talk about the rivalry between the US and Iran, most people immediately think of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Some say that if the US had not carried out the 1953 coup in Iran, the two countries might never have become enemies. But in this long and complicated story, there is one important detail that almost everyone overlooks. Did you know that the US Iran rivalry has an India connection? Yes, behind this hostility, there was an Indian mullah, a cleric whose influence changed the course of history. Without him, the conflict between Iran and America might never have reached the level we see today. If this mullah had not existed, the threats we hear now, like make a deal or we will rain down more bombs than ever before, might never have been made. And maybe Iran wouldn't be supporting groups like Hamas and Hezbollah in the way it does today. Perhaps the Middle East would have been a much calmer place. The story of the US Iran rivalry is not just about political conspiracies, spy agencies, and the fight for oil. It also includes a mullah from a small town in Uttar Pradesh, India, a man who changed not only Iran's future but also America's entire Middle East policy. This mullah was no ordinary man. At a time when Iran's ruler Reza Shah Pahlavi was closely aligned with the United States, it was this very cleric who helped strengthen the wave of Islamic fundamentalism against the Shah. But who was this mullah? How did he escape from Uttar Pradesh and end up in Iran? And how did he play a role in turning Iran into America's biggest enemy? In this video, we will explore the entire story from the 1953 coup to the Islamic Revolution and uncover how the influence of an Indian cleric helped fuel the tension between Iran and the United States. Was his involvement just religious activism or was there a deeper conspiracy behind it? Today, the US president may be threatening Iran, but the hostility between America and Iran is decades old. And there are three major reasons behind this: crude oil, Islam, and the US Russia rivalry. These three forces came together and created the perfect environment for a religious leader to rise, spread his agenda, and eventually overthrow Iran's ruler. This not only changed the government of Iran but also turned Iran and the United States into bitter enemies. To understand this story, we need to go back to the time when the world was deep in the chaos of World War II. In the early 20th century, during the war, huge oil reserves were discovered in Iran. The British owned Anglo Iranian Oil Company was extracting oil from the Abadan oil fields. At that time, Iran was ruled by the Pahlavi dynasty, but it also had an elected government. In 1949, a new constitution was introduced that required the king to appoint a prime minister. But Muhammad Raza Shah Pahlavi, the ruler of Iran, would not let any prime minister stay in power for more than few months. The Shah was closely aligned with the United States, educated in Switzerland, and had modern Western views. His reforms angered the traditional Islamic clergy. And among those clerics stood one powerful figure, Ayatollah Khomeini. Mohammad Mossadegh became Iran's prime minister in 1952. He wanted to nationalize Iran's oil industry, a step that Britain strongly opposed. The British feared that if Iran succeeded, other countries like Saudi Arabia might also demand full control over their oil reserves. So Britain brought in a new partner, the United States. Declassified CIA documents later revealed that the US and Britain worked together to create unrest in Iran. In 1953, they helped overthrow Mossadegh. This weakened the office of the Prime Minister and restored full power to Reza Shah Pahlavi, who was seen as a reliable ally of the United States. Iran then became a strategic buffer for America against the Soviet Union. Its location made it an ideal frontline barrier during the Cold War. But the ordinary people of Iran gained almost nothing from this alliance. Poverty increased, inequality grew, and many Iranians felt that the Shah had become a puppet of the US. In this climate of anger and frustration, Ayatollah Khomeini rose as a powerful voice for the people. In 1963, the Shah announced a major reform program called the White Revolution. It included plans for modernization, new schools, and expanded rights for women. Ayatollah Khomeini firmly opposed these reforms, and this is where the Indian connection appears. Ayatollah Khomeini's ancestors were actually from India. His grandfather, Sayyid Ahmad Musawi, was originally from the Barabanki district in Uttar Pradesh. In 1830, he traveled with the Nawab of Awadh to the Middle East and eventually settled in a village in Iran called Khomein. A generation later, the family adopted the village name, and that is how their surname became Khomeini. Meanwhile, anger against the Shah was steadily growing because of his extravagant lifestyle. In 1971, he spent equivalent of 80 billion rupees on a grand celebration of Iran's 2500-year monarchy. This was happening while ordinary people were struggling in poverty. Khomeini denounced the celebration as a party of the devils. In 1978, Iran's state-run newspaper insulted Khomeini by mocking his Indian origins and calling him an Indian Mullah and a British agent. Instead of weakening him, this attack enraged the public even more. By September 1978, millions of Iranians poured into the streets to protest against the Shah. Martial law failed to control the uprising. In 1979, the Shah fled to the US and Iran descended into full-scale revolution. Khomeini returned from exile in France and with massive public support took control of the country. Iran was declared an Islamic Republic and Khomeini became its supreme leader. After this, relations between United States and Iran only grew worse. Iranian students stormed the US embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage. They were released after 444 days of captivity. Then in 1988, the US Navy shot down an Iran air passenger flight, killing 290 people, including 10 Indians. The United States never apologized for the incident. During the Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988, the US openly supported Saddam Hussein. The war claimed the lives of millions of soldiers. After the conflict ended, Iran began moving towards developing a nuclear bomb. In 2002, the United States labeled Iran, Iraq, and North Korea as the axis of evil, accusing Iran of supporting terrorism. This was also the period when Iran's secret nuclear program came into the spotlight. The US responded with strict economic sanctions that also affected India's trade with Iran. In 2015, the Obama administration reached a nuclear agreement with Iran and relations slowly began to improve. But in 2016, President Donald Trump cancelled the deal, reimposed sanctions, and declared Iran's military a terrorist organization. Even today, Iran and the US continue to fight proxy wars on multiple fronts in Yemen, in Syria, Israel, and Lebanon. And despite decades of pressure, threats, and negotiations, the hostility between the two countries still shows no signs of ending. The rivalry has grown so deep that it's hard to imagine the two nations ever becoming friends again. What do you think? Can Iran and America ever rebuild their relationship? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video. And for more stories from history, subscribe to History Connect English. Thank you for watching.